Green eggs and ham. One day, a cheerful little fellow named Sam I Am came bouncing in with a tray in his hands. Would you like some green eggs and ham? He asked with a big grin. But the other man, grumpy and serious, shook his head. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I Am. But Sam wasn't giving up that easily. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. Would you like them in a house? Or maybe with a mouse? No, not in a house, not in a mouse, not here or there, not anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I Am. But Sam kept trying. Would you? Could you? In a car, on a train, in the rain, in a tree, in the dark, with a goat, on a boat? No, 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 the grumpy man shouted again and again. But finally, just to make Sam stop, he gave in. Fine, if you will let me be, I will try them, you will see. He took a bite and blinked. Say, I like green eggs and ham. I do. I like them, Sam I Am. And I would eat them in a boat, with a goat, in the rain, on a train, in the dark, in a tree, in a car, and in a house with a mouse. I will eat them here and there. I will eat them anywhere. Sam I Am beamed. I knew you'd like them. In boots. Once upon a time, there was a poor miller who had 3 sons. When the miller passed away, he left behind only a small inheritance. To his eldest son, he gave the mill. To his second son, he gave a donkey. And to his youngest son, he left a cat. The youngest son was disappointed. What can I do with just a cat? He sighed. But this was no ordinary cat. It was a clever, talking cat with bright green eyes and sleek fur. Do not worry, master, the cat said. Give me a pair of boots and a bag, and I shall make your fortune. Curious but hopeful, the young man gave the cat a fine pair of boots and a sturdy bag. The cat put on his boots and set off on an adventure. Puss in Boots went to a field where rabbits and partridges roamed. Using his wits, he laid a trap with the bag and caught a fat rabbit. He then marched to the king's castle and presented the rabbit to the king and queen. A gift from my noble master, the Marquis of Carabas, Puss announced with a bow. The king was impressed. For several weeks, Puss continued bringing gifts, each time saying that they were from her wealthy Marquis of Carabas, a title he had invented for his poor master. One day, Puss heard that the king and his beautiful daughter, the princess, were taking a ride in their royal carriage along the river. He hurried back to his master. Quickly, master, go bathe in the river and leave the rest to me. Though confused, the young man obeyed. As soon as he was in the water, Puss hid his master's ragged clothes and began shouting, Help! Help!
The Marquis of Carabas has been robbed. Hearing the cries, the king stopped his carriage. Recognizing Puss from all the gifts, he immediately ordered his servants to help. They dressed the young man in fine royal clothes and invited him into the carriage. The princess, noticing the handsome Marquis of Carabas, blushed and smiled at him. The young man, now dressed as a noble, bowed politely, and the princess began to fall in love. Meanwhile, Puss ran ahead to a grand castle belonging to the fearsome ogre, who was the true ruler of the land. The cat knocked on the castle door, and when the ogre answered, bowed deeply. I have heard you possess great magic, mighty ogre. Is it true you can turn yourself into any creature? The ogre laughed. Of course, watch this. With a flash, the ogre transformed into a roaring lion. Puss pretended to tremble. Incredible! But surely you cannot become something as small as a mouse. The ogre scoffed. That's easy. In an instant, the mighty ogre shrunk into a tiny mouse, and Puss pounced. He ate the ogre in one gulp, claiming the castle for his master. When the king's carriage arrived at the castle, Puss welcomed them grandly. Welcome to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas, he declared. The king was astonished by the vast wealth and beauty of the land. Seeing the young man's charm, the king declared, You shall marry my daughter. The princess and the young man were overjoyed. Soon they were married in a grand royal celebration, and the poor miller's son truly became the Marquis of Carabas. As for Puss in Boots, he became the greatest and most respected cat in the kingdom, never wanting for anything again except the occasional dish of cream and a warm spot by the fire. And so they all lived happily ever after. Rapunzel. Once upon a time, in a far away kingdom, a husband and wife lived near a beautiful garden filled with the most delicious fruits and vegetables. But this garden belonged to a powerful sorceress named Mother Gothel, and no one dared to enter. One day, the wife, who was expecting a child, saw some fresh Rapunzel, a type of leafy green, growing in the sorceress' garden. She longed for it, and so much that she became ill with desire. Seeing her distress, the husband decided to sneak into the garden and pick some for her. Just as he was about to leave, Mother Gothel appeared before him in a fury. How dare you steal from my garden? She hissed. Terrified, the man begged for mercy and explained his wife's condition. The sorceress' face softened, but her voice remained cold. You may take as much as you like, she said, but in return you must give me the child when it is born. The man, too frightened to refuse, agreed. When the baby girl was born, Mother Gothel took her away and named her Rapunzel, after the plant they had caused the bargain. She raised the child deep in the forest, hiding her away in a tall tower with no doors or stairs, accessible only by a single window. As Rapunzel grew, her golden hair became long and strong, reaching the ground below. Every day, Mother Gothel would come to the tower and call, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. Obediently, Rapunzel would drop her long golden braid out the window, and Mother Gothel would climb up. One day, a handsome prince was riding through the forest when he heard a beautiful voice singing. He followed the sound and discovered Rapunzel at the window of her tower. Mesmerized, he watched from a distance and soon saw Mother Gothel arrived. When she called out and climbed up using Rapunzel's hair, the prince realized how to reach the girl. That night, when Mother Gothel was gone, the prince stood beneath the tower and called, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. Thinking it was Mother Gothel, Rapunzel lowered her braid, and the prince climbed up. At first, Rapunzel was startled by the stranger, but the prince spoke kindly to her, and they soon fell in love. He promised to take her away from the tower and see the world together. They planned for her to weave a ladder out of silk so she could escape. But one day, Rapunzel accidentally let it slip. Mother Gothel, why it is so much easier to pull up the prince than you? Mother Gothel's eyes blazed with fury. You deceitful girl, she shrieked. In her rage, she cut off Rapunzel's golden hair and cast her out into the wilderness. That evening, when the prince arrived and called for her, Mother Gothel tied Rapunzel's cut hair to a hook and let it down. When the prince climbed up, he found Mother Gothel waiting for him instead of Rapunzel. You will never see her again, the sorceress cackled. Heartbroken, the prince leaped from the tower and fell into a thorny bush below. Though he survived, the thorns blinded him, and he wandered through the land searching for his beloved. Meanwhile, Rapunzel lived alone in the wilderness, surviving on her own. One day, as she sang near a river, a familiar voice called her name. It was the prince. Though blind, he had followed the sound of her singing. Overjoyed, Rapunzel ran into him and wept with happiness. As her tears fell into his eyes, his sight was miraculously restored. The prince could see again. Together they traveled back to his kingdom, where they were married and lived happily ever after. As for Mother Gothel, she was never seen again. Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, a king and queen were overjoyed to have a baby daughter after many years of longing. The entire kingdom celebrated the birth of the princess, and a grand feast was held in her honor. The king and queen invited all the fairies in the land to come and bless their child with gifts of beauty, kindness, and wisdom. However, one fairy who had not been invited to the feast appeared at the last moment. This fairy, bitter about being excluded, was determined to curse the newborn princess. She raised her hand and declared that the princess would prick her finger on a spinning wheel and die on her 16th birthday. The guests at the feast gasped in horror, but before the curse could fully take effect, another fairy, who had not yet given her blessing, stepped forward. She could not undo the curse, but she could soften it. Instead of dying, the princess would fall into a deep magical sleep that would only be broken by the kiss of true love. Years passed, and the king and queen did everything they could to protect their daughter. They ordered all spinning wheels in the kingdom to be destroyed, hoping to keep the curse from coming true. But on her 16th birthday, the princess, curious about an old, forgotten part of the castle, found a hidden room where an old woman was spinning thread. The princess, unaware of the danger, touched the spinning wheel. Instantly, she pricked her finger and fell into a deep sleep, just as the curse has foretold. The entire kingdom was plunged into sorrow, and the king and queen were heartbroken. The kind fairy who had softened the curse used her magic to cast a spell over the entire kingdom, causing everyone to fall asleep as well, so that they would not have to endure the sadness of their beloved princess lying in slumber. Years passed, and the tale of the sleeping princess became a legend. Many princes came and tried to break the curse, but none could succeed. Then, one day, a brave and kind prince who had heard the story journeyed to the castle. He made his way through the thorns that had grown around the castle, and when he finally reached the princess, he kissed her gently on her forehead. At that moment, the magic was broken. The princess awoke from her deep sleep, and with her, the entire kingdom. The king and queen rejoiced, and the prince and princess were soon married. They lived happily ever after, and their love became a symbol of hope and magic for all who heard their story.
The Cat in the Hat. It was a cold, wet day. Sally and her brother sat by the window, bored and restless. There was nothing to do. Then, bump, the door flew open, and in came someone very unexpected. A tall cat wearing a red and white striped hat and a big grin. "Why sit here and mope?" said the cat in the hat. "There's fun to be had. We can fix that." Before the children could say a word, the cat began balancing books, umbrellas, and a fish. all while standing on a ball. But the fish wasn't pleased. This cat should not be here. He should not be allowed. He should not be doing tricks inside the house. The cat just smiled. Don't worry, he said. I have more fun to show you. Then he opened a big red box, and out popped thing one and thing two. The two little creatures zoomed through the house, flying kites, knocking over chairs, making a wild mess. Sally and her brother tried to stop them. The fish shouted louder, Your mother will be home soon. That's when the kids knew the mess had to go. With quick thinking and a big net, the children caught thing one and thing two and told the cat, That's enough. The cat looked around all the mess. Then he packed up the things, brought in a strange machine, and cleaned the whole house in a flash. Just as he left, boom, the front door closed, and their mother walked in. She looked around and asked, What did you do today? Sally and her brother just smiled. But what would you say if it happened to the elves and the shoemaker? Once upon a time, there was a poor shoemaker who lived with his kind-hearted wife. Though he worked hard every day, he had fallen on hard times. He had just enough leather left to make one final pair of shoes. That evening, the shoemaker cut the leather and laid it out on his workbench, planning to finish the shoes in the morning. Then he went to bed, heavy with worry but hopeful. The next morning, he returned to his workshop, and to his amazement, the shoes were already perfectly made. The stitching was flawless, the leather smooth and polished. It was the finest pair of shoes he had ever seen. A customer soon came in and was so impressed that he paid more than the usual price. With that money, the shoemaker bought leather for two more pairs. That night, just as before, he laid out the leather and went to bed. And again, the shoes were finished by morning, even more beautiful than before. He continued night after night. Every evening, the shoemaker cut the leather, and each morning he would find fine shoes ready to be sold. Before long, the shoemaker and his wife were no longer poor. They were comfortable and happy, thanks to the mysterious help they were receiving. One night, the shoemaker and his wife decided to stay up and discover who was helping them. They hid in the workshop and waited quietly. At midnight, two tiny elves crept into the room. They were dressed in ragged clothes, and their feet were bare. Swiftly and skillfully, they began to sew and hammer, working by moonlight. In no time at all, the shoes were finished, and the elves disappeared into the night. The shoemaker and his wife were touched by the elves' kindness. The little elves have helped us so much, said the wife. Let's make them some clothes and shoes of their own. So, the next morning, instead of leather, They left out two tiny outfits: coats, trousers, shirts, and little shoes. They also placed a note that read, "Thank you, dear friends." That night, the elves returned. When they saw the clothes, they laughed with joy and quickly changed into their new outfits. Then, dancing and singing, they skipped out of the workshop and were never seen again. But the shoemaker and his wife never forget their kindness, and from that day on, their work continued to thrive. For good things come to those who show gratitude. And the fisherman and his wife. Once upon a time, there was a poor fisherman who lived in a small cottage by the sea with his wife. They had very little but were content with their simple life. Every day, the fisherman would go out in his boat to catch fish. One day, while fishing near the shore, he caught a strange golden fish. To his surprise, the fish spoke to him. "Please let me go, kind fisherman," the fish pleaded. "I am an enchanted princess. If you release me, I will grant you a wish." The fisherman, surprised but moved by the fish's words, set it free and let it swim back into the ocean. He returned home and told his wife about the strange fish. His wife, who was not content with their humble life, was furious when she heard the story. "Why didn't you ask for something in return?" she scolded. "You should have asked for a better life for us." Reluctantly, the fisherman went back to the sea and called out to the fish, "Golden fish, I released you, and my wife is not happy. She wishes for a better life. Can you grant her a wish?" The fish appeared, and the fisherman told him of his wife's desire. The fish agreed and told the fisherman to go back home, where he would find a new surprise. When the fisherman returned, he found that their cottage had been transformed into a beautiful grand house. His wife was delighted and demanded more. "We should have more than just this house. I want to be a queen," she said. Once again, the fisherman went to the sea and called for the golden fish. "Please grant my wife wish," he begged. The fish agreed once more and told the fisherman to go home. When the fisherman returned, his wife was now living in a palace, surrounded by servants and riches. But it wasn't enough for her. "I want to be the ruler of all the seas," she demanded. "Tell the fish to make me the queen of the ocean." The fisherman hesitated, but feeling bound to his wife, he went back to the sea once more. He called to the fish, explaining his wife's new wish. The fish appeared and listened to the fisherman's plea. "Go home," the fish said, "and you will find what your wife desires." When the fisherman returned, the palace was even grander than before, but his wife wasn't satisfied. "I want to rule everything. I want to be the supreme ruler of the universe," she commanded. The fisherman, though tired and afraid, went to the sea one final time. As he called for the golden fish, a great storm suddenly arose, and the sea became furious. The fish appeared, but this time its voice was stern.
Its voice was
Your
stern.
wife's greed has no limits. I gave her everything she asked for, but now her desires has grown too large. Go back home and you will find your house just as it was before. The fishermen returned to find their beautiful palace gone, replaced by their old humble cottage by the sea. His wife was back to the way she had been before, sitting in the small, simple home. They were once again poor, and the fisherman sighed deeply. From that day on, the wife never asked for more, and they lived out the rest of their days in their humble cottage, learning to appreciate the simple life they had once taken for granted.
The Fox and the Grapes. One hot summer day, a hungry fox was wandering through the forest in search of something to eat. His stomach growled and his tongue hung out from the heat. Suddenly, he spotted a vine full of ripe, juicy grapes hanging over a high branch. Mmm, said the fox, licking his lips. Just the thing to fill my belly. He backed up, took the running start, and leaped into the air. But he missed. He tried again, running faster this time. Leap, still too short. He tried once more, jumping with all his might. But the grapes were just too high. Panting and frustrated, the fox sat down beneath the vine. Hmm, he said at last, flicking his tail. I did not want those grapes anyway. I bet they are sour. And with that, he turned up his nose and trotted away. But deep down, he was still very hungry. Moral: it's easy to dislike what you can't have. The Gingerbread Man. Once upon a time, in a little cottage near the woods, an old woman and an old man lived together. One day, the woman decided to bake a special treat, a gingerbread man. She carefully mixed the dough, rolled it out, and cut it into the shape of a little man. She gave him raisins for eyes, a candy smile, and buttons made of cherries. Then she placed him in the oven to bake. As the gingerbread man baked, the warm scent filled the kitchen. With the old woman opened the oven door, to her surprise, the gingerbread man jumped right out. He landed on the floor and dashed towards the door. Stop! Cried the old woman. Stop! Shouted the old man. But the gingerbread man only laughed and sang, Run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I am the gingerbread man. And off he ran, faster than the old couple could chase him. As he ran down the road, he met a hungry cow. Stop, you look delicious, said the cow. But the gingerbread man just laughed and sang his song again. Run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man. He ran past the cow and kept going, Next, he came across a horse. Stop, I'd love to eat you, neighed the horse. But the gingerbread man laughed and sang, run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man. And he ran even faster. Soon he reached a river. He stopped. He couldn't swim. Just then, a sly fox appeared. Do you need help crossing the river? Asked the fox. The gingerbread man hesitated, but seeing no other way, he agreed. Hop onto my tail, said the fox. The gingerbread man climbed onto the fox's tail, and the fox began swimming. But soon the fox said, the water is getting deeper. Climb onto my back. The gingerbread man moved up the fox's back. A moment later, the fox said, the water is even deeper now. Climb onto my nose. As soon as the gingerbread man climbed onto the fox's nose, snap, the fox tossed him into the air, opened his mouth, and gobbled him up. And that was the end of the gingerbread man. Moral: be careful who you trust. The Giving Tree. Once upon a time, there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. Every day, the boy would come to play in her shade. He would climb her trunk, swing from her branches, and eat her apples. The tree was happy. But as the boy grew older, he visited less often. One day, he came back, no longer a little boy, and the tree said, come, play with me. I'm too big to play, said the boy. I need money. The tree offered her apples. Take them and sell them. The boy did, and the tree was happy. Time passed, and the boy became older. He came back. The tree said, come climb my trunk. I'm too busy, said the boy. I need a house. The tree offered her branches. Take them to build your house. The boy did, and the tree was happy. Years later, the boy returned again, older and tired. The tree said, come play. I need a boat, said the boy, to sail far away. The tree offered her trunk. Cut it down and build your boat. The boy did, and the tree was happy, but not really. A long time passed. Then the boy, now an old man, came back. The tree said, I have nothing left to give. I don't need much now, said the old man, just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am just an old stump, said the tree, but you can sit on me. The boy did, and the tree was happy. The Golden Goose. Once upon a time, there was a simple, kind-hearted young man named Simpleton. He lived with his two older brothers and their parents in a small village. While his brothers were clever and proud, Simpleton was gentle and often laughed at for being a bit slow. One day, the eldest brother went into the forest to chop woods. Their mother gave him a sweet cake and a bottle of wine for his trip. As he worked, a little old man came by and politely asked for a bite to eat. Go away, old beggar, the brother snapped. This is mine. The old man walked away without a word. But no longer after, the brother swung his axe, and it slipped and cut his arm. He had to go home in pain and shame. The next day, the second brother went into the forest. He too got a cake and wine. And again, the little old man appeared. Share with me, won't you? The old man asked. Not a chance, said the second brother. Go bother someone else. Soon after, he too met misfortune. His axe slipped, and he hurt his leg. He hobbled home. Finally, Simpleton asked to go. His mother laughed and said, What would you do in the forest? But eventually she gave him a dry crust of bread and some water. Simpleton walked into the forest and began chopping woods. The same little old man appeared and kindly asked for food. I don't have much, said Simpleton, but you're welcome to share it. He broke his crust in half and poured water in 2 cups. The old man smiled. You have a kind heart, he said. Because you shared, I'll reward you. He pointed to a tree and said, Chop down that one. Simpleton did as told, and inside the hollow trunk he found a golden goose. Its feathers shone like a sun. He happily took it and set off for an inn where he could rest. At the inn, the innkeeper's 3 daughters saw the golden goose and couldn't resist trying to pluck a feather. But the moment the first girl touched it, she stuck fast. Then her sister tried to pull her away and got stuck too. The third did the same, and now all the 3 were attached to the goose. Simpleton, unaware, continued walking with the goose under his arm, and the 3 girls stumbling behind him in a line. Along the way, people started in amazement. A farmer tried to stop them and got stuck too. Then a priest, a gardener, a soldier. One by one, they all joined the line, unable to let go. At last, they arrived at the castle. Now in that castle lived a princess who was always so serious that no one had ever made her smile. Her father, the king, had declared, Whoever can make the princess laugh shall marry her. When the princess saw Simpleton walking by with a goose and a long train of people clumsily trailing behind him, she couldn't stop herself. She burst out laughing, not just a giggle, but a full, hearty laugh. The king was astonished, but he kept his promise. After a few more tests of kindness and honesty, Simpleton passed him all. And so, The simple young man with the golden goose married the princess, and because of his good heart, he became a wise and beloved king. The Jungle Book. Once upon a time, deep in the wild heart of the jungle, a small boy was found all alone. He had wandered away from a village during the night, and now he was lost among the trees. But he wasn't alone for long. A kind wolf mother heard his cries and followed the sound to a thicket. There, under the moonlight, she saw the child, naked, curious, and fearless. He is not one of us, she said, but he is small and helpless. I will raise him as my own. So the boy grew up in the jungle with a pack of wolves, who named him Mowgli. Mowgli learned the laws of the jungle from a wise black panther named Bagheera and a fun-loving bear named Baloo, who taught him how to speak to animals, find honey, and stay safe. He made friends with elephants, monkeys, and even a lazy python named Kaa. But life in the jungle was not all fun and games. One animal did not welcome Mowgli, the fierce and cunning tiger, Sher Khan. Sher Khan hated humans. He said, "The boy does not belong here. He is dangerous. He must leave the jungle." The wolves were torn. Some believed Mowgli was family, others feared the tiger's threat. One day, Sher Khan made his move. He tried to drive Mowgli away, but Mowgli, clever and brave, used his human wits to light a fire, something no animal dared touch. The fire scared Sher Khan away, and Mowgli stood tall. But in his heart, he knew the truth. He was not a wolf, nor a tiger, nor a bear. He was human. So, Mowgli made a difficult choice. He said goodbye to his jungle family and returned to the village where he had come from as a boy. There, he would grow up among people, but he would never forget the jungle or the creatures who raised him, protected him, and made him who he was. And sometimes, when the wind rustled through the trees and the stars twinkled above, Mowgli would smile, remembering Baloo's song and Bagheera's eyes glowing in the dark. He would always carry the jungle in his heart. The Lion and the Mouse. One sunny afternoon, deep in the heart of savannah, a mighty lion lay fast asleep beneath a shady tree. The wind was gentle, the birds were singing, and all was peaceful. Suddenly, a tiny mouse came scurrying through the grass and ran right over the lion's paw. Grrr! The lion woke with a start and slammed his huge paw down, trapping the little mouse beneath it. Who dares disturb the king of the jungle? The lion roared, baring his teeth. The mouse squeaked in fear. "I- I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I did not mean to. Please let me go, and I promise I'll repay you someday." The lion raised an eyebrow. "You? A mouse? Repay me?" He laughed a deep, rumbling laugh. "That's the funniest thing I have ever heard." But something about the mouse's courage made him pause. "You're lucky. I'm in a good mood," the lion said, and he gently lifted his paw and let the mouse scurry away. Days passed, and the lion forgot all about the little mouse. But one morning, as he prowled through the jungle, he walked into a hunter's trap. A net made of thick rope dropped from the trees. The lion roared and thrashed, but the more he struggled, the tighter the net became. Soon he was stuck. His roar echoed through the forest, reaching the ears of Tiny Mouse. "That sound like a lion," she said, and she ran towards the sound. When she saw him tangled in the net, she called out, "Don't worry, friend, I'll help you." The mouse nibbled and gnawed at the ropes with her sharp little teeth. She worked quickly and bravely, and soon, snap, the rope broke. Then another and another, until the lion was free. The lion stood up, amazed. "You saved me," he said softly. "I never thought a little mouse like you could help a great lion like me." The mouse grinned. "Even the smallest friend can make a big difference." From that day on, the lion and the mouse remained the best of friends, proving that kindness never wasted, and that even the smallest creature can be mighty. The little engine that could. Chuck, chuck, chuck. Puff, puff, puff. Up and down the tracks. Big and small trains went all day long. One day, a little train was carrying a very special load: toys, dolls, books, and good food for children on the other side of the mountain. There were teddy bears, picture books, building blocks, shiny toy cars, and even little dolls with beautiful dresses. There were fresh fruits, bottles of milk, and lollipops in every color. But suddenly, oh no, the little train stopped right at the bottom of the mountain. She had broken down. The toys were worried. "How will we get over the mountain now?" the dolls cried. "The children are waiting." So the toys asked passing engine for help. First came a big shiny passenger engine. "Please help us," the toy begged. But the big engine snorted. I pull important people. I don't have time for toys. And off he roared. Next came a strong, grumpy freight engine. The toys asked again. But he grumbled, I haul heavy loads, not silly toys, and rolled away. One by one, more engines passed, and none would help. Then a small blue engine came chugging by. She was not very big or shiny. She had never been over the mountain before. But when the toys asked her, she said, I'm not very big, and I've never done this before, but I think I can. She hitched herself to the broken train, and up the mountain she started. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, she puffed. It was steep, it was hard, but she kept going. I think I can, I think I can. At last, she reached the top, and as she rolled down for the other side, she smiled. I thought I could, I thought I could. And thanks to the little blue engine, the toys reached the children right on time. The musicians of Breman. Once upon a time, in a countryside far away, there was a donkey who had worked hard for many years carrying heavy sacks to the mill. But now that he was growing old and weak, his master no longer wanted him. The donkey, not wanting to wait around to be kicked out, decided to run away. I'll go to Bremen, he said, and become a musician. On his way, he met a dog lying by the roadside, panting with exhaustion. What's wrong, friend? Asked the donkey. I'm too old to hunt, the dog sighed. My master doesn't want me anymore. Well then, said the donkey, come with me to Bremen. We will make the music together. The dog happily agreed, and off they went. Before long, they met a cat sitting on a fence, looking very sad. What's the matter? They asked. I'm getting old, and my claws are dull, said the cat. No one wants a mouser who can't chase mice. Then join us, said the donkey. We are going to Bremen to become musicians. So the cat joined them, and the three companions continued down the road. Soon they passed a rooster, crowing at the top of his lungs. Why are you shouting so loud? Asked the dog. I heard the cook is planning to put me in the soup, cried the rooster. I'm trying to sing one last song before it's too late. Forget the soup, said the donkey. Come with us to Bremen. We need a singer. Delighted, the rooster flew down, and now they were four. A donkey, a dog, a cat, and a rooster, all heading to Bremen to become musicians. That night, as they were traveling through the forest, they saw a light coming from a little cottage. Curious and hungry, they crept up and peeked inside. There were robbers inside, feasting at a big table. How can we scare them off? Whispered the donkey. They quickly formed a plan. The donkey stood with the dog on his back. The cat climbed into the dog, and the rooster perched on top. Then, all together, they made the most terrible racket. Hee haw, woof, mew, cock a doodle doo. They crashed through the window and sent the robbers screaming into the woods. The animals, proud of their clever trick, ate a delicious meal and settled into the cozy house for the night. Later, one of the robbers crept back to see who had taken over the house. But in the dark, he mistook the cat's glowing eyes for hot coals and got scratched. The dog bit his leg, the donkey kicked him, and the rooster crowed so loud the man ran for his life, shouting, "It's haunted!" The robbers never came back, and so far, the donkey, dog, cat, and rooster, they found they liked the cottage in the woods so much they never made it to the Breman after all. They stayed there, living happily together, making music and enjoying their well earned rest.